Everybody has been asking me to make a video on this constantly over the past 2 days, and I told you guys I was going to wait until we got a couple more details. It looks like Psyonix has given us official ruling based upon the circumstance, and I'm glad we got it. What is up, everybody? Lawler here, your inside source for all things Rocket League. Today, we've got an interesting thing to talk about due to an admin call that happened in the semifinals of this past weekend's NA Regional 3 event between Envy and Space Station, and happened in the midst of Game 3 right as we get into the overtime. Before I get into that, I'm going to basically break down everything that you guys need to know about this and kind of go step by step. We're going to talk about the context, why it's important. We're going to talk about what the players and everybody else kind of felt about it, the rulings, the statements made by players and coaches and everything else. A ton of memes that most likely will be shown at the end. We then at the very end also have the official rulings put out by Psyonix about how they are handling this. The official competitive rulings based upon fines or suspensions or whatever is going on. So I'm going to basically provide you guys the context and the history and the lead up to it and why it's important. And then I'm also going to break down what the results are. So a little bit of everything in this video. Before we get into it, as always though, if you guys do enjoy the content, thumbs up, subscribe, you guys know what to do. Links to everything I talk about in the description along with my social medias. If you'd like to talk about this further detail, you can come over to the stream at twitch.tv/Lawler. I stream every day but Tuesday. Come hang out with us. So to summarize the scenario for you all, it is NA Regional 3. It is the semifinals. You've got Energy and Oxygen in the top bracket. Energy just won 4-3, is moving on to the grand finals. Below that, you've got Space Station Gaming and Team Envy, both teams looking pretty solid. At the beginning of this series, I stated, hey, Envy is looking better, but I still think SSG will win due to their playstyle and the efforts they've been putting in, which in this case, it looks like it's going to go that way. Game 1 does go to Envy 2-1, 1-goal game. Game 2, Space Station bounces back, wins in overtime 2-1 with 2 minutes 17 seconds. We then get to Game 3. Game 3 being an extremely important one, especially in best of 5s. And in best of 7s, they're kind of that pivotal moment. Usually when teams are really good at making adaptations and the ability to adjust mid-series, Game 3 is kind of that pivot moment. It's the ability for a team after either 2 losses or a little bit of time, kind of Game 1 being the feeler match, Game 2 being, hey, let's implement our strategy, we feel comfortable. Game 3 is the one that kind of sets a precedent for the rest of the series. It's a very important match, and you're talking 2 teams that are both in consideration for the top 3 in North America, probably top 4 if you really want to push it with Rogue in there. But both these teams are playing in a match that they really don't want to lose. This is a very competitive match and a good one that we've seen countless times, and the results have always been varying. This is kind of a bragging rights as well as a way to go to the grand finals and secure yourself quite a bit of money. You're talking, it's a $100,000 tournament and first place gets 30 grand. So that's 10 grand a piece per player. A lot on the line. At the end of Game 3, it is tied. It is 2-2, and we go into overtime, and then this happens. So as you can see by the clip, there's 2 major things that happen that I want to pay attention to. Immediately after the kickoff, as we go into OT, you can see before the counter even goes to 1 second and the kickoff even happens, you can see on the very bottom right with Sypical's camera, it goes black, and it shows that he has disconnected in some capacity, whether it be his controller, whether it be from the server, whether it be ping issues. Whatever it is, you can see his screen flash, and it looks like he has alt-tabbed. He is trying to contact either an admin or something to that regard is happening. He is trying to fix the situation. So that happens. Immediately after, you then see his car drive down in the middle of the field, and it's unresponsive, as if a disconnect has happened. He has put in the input of holding right trigger, which is your acceleration, and he just keeps on driving and is not able to make a play on the ball. He is the player cheating up, and is the one that after the kickoff is there to read a 50-50 challenge and be there to continue the play, whether it be getting an advantage or denying their player who is also cheating up. Those are kind of the major scenarios. After this all happened, there was essentially a 20-minute break on the broadcast. It was not short. I went back. It started at like 6 hours and like 1 second into the broadcast where they finished the game, and then they don't come back until 6 hours and 20-ish minutes into the broadcast. So legitimately about a 20-minute break that we went to a pause. They went to a screen with music and showed highlights. It was a pretty long break to make this call. When they come back from the call, what we ended up finding out that due to Sypical not being in a position to make a play on the ball, they have decided to progress forward. To which I bring this argument. This is a tweet by Sypical on Twitter that ends up showing the replay file of the actual kickoff. This is from the perspective of Sypical, and you can see him most definitely in a position to go and make a play on that ball. Anybody who plays Rocket League or has played Rocket League at a above average level would know that on this cheat up, Sypical without a doubt is in position to make a play. All he has to do is dodge to the left and he's there. And that's even without using any boost, any speed in any capacity. That is just basic acceleration. Clearly, this provides a lot of frustration. A lot of players, coaches, everybody basically starts creating memes and criticizing and getting on the case of this is ridiculous. All while the series continues to progress. What ends up happening is you can clearly tell that the SSG team is unbelievably tilted and starts missing shots and not playing well. Envy takes the immediate next game, and then SSG settles down and they come back to play. And the difficulty is not over yet. Once it gets to game 7, Envy ends up winning, and in the last few seconds, you can see Retals' frustration of recognizing we're down by 2. There's not enough time. I'm pissed off. I turn off my camera, and I leave the match early, which is against the rules. It is clearly stated in the rules that you must stay until the end of the match. So then conversation starts happening that he's going to get fined because he did break the rules, and even though he is tilted, it is his job to play until the end because otherwise the stats screen gets messed up and everything else. Now, I don't disagree with Retals. I do understand the frustration, and I honestly can see myself doing the same thing, but he is being fined for the fact that he did break the rules. It is clearly stated, it's black and white, and in this circumstance, yeah, the fine is deserved. It is clearly, even though you are frustrated, part of the rules. I say this with also agreeing with Retals and his frustration and the situation for Space Station being a really sucky one, without a doubt, but rules are rules. After the match, you do see some of the tweets from their coach in Chrome who says, player DCs on kickoff and we get scored on. Oh, I didn't call pause fast enough, so we lose the game. And then you start to see a bunch of memes about how Chrome is a slow typer and needs to start playing on Type Racer, and he has coaches that will help him learn how to type, hunt and peck, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of content that was put on Twitter this weekend. Chrome also tweets that teams literally have the default server, which is Ohio, when they have 3 East Coast players just to have an advantage over us. This one feels a little bit more emotional from Chrome, but to provide perspective, the RLCS definitely has dedicated servers that people can pick from. And with their player being from Louisiana, the ping difference is good for appears like every other team as compared to obviously Sypical, who's a little bit further away. In the future, he says he would like to see a ping graph, which in layman's terms is a graph that shows all the players' pings, 3 from each team, and you try to get an average. So both teams don't have an advantage. The average of this team's ping and the average of this team's ping are similar rather than this team is all good, this team is good -1. So trying to find some consistency there. And again, just further makes me miss the pandemic going away and us having a live event, because then ping and stuff like that isn't an issue. The other problem with this is due to the spectator and the way that these coaches have to watch the matches. For those that do not know, and I've talked about this in the past, a couple things I've talked about in the past. Number one, I talked about how I was appreciative of that we don't have to deal with bad refs making calls. Yes, I can cast a curse that as well. And the other side of it is the coaches and the way that they spectate these matches. Right now, there is not enough spectator slots in the RLCS client. The observer has not been updated for a very long time, other than the director cam that they brought in at some point. The spectator is still limited, and you're talking 3 players on each side. You also have the admins that are in there. And then you also have the casters that are watching. And the reason why they have the casters in there is so they can free roam camera and get their perspectives and do the best of their ability. This still does not provide them the ability to see all the boosts at the same time and everything else. And if anything, this has really shown that the Spectator client desperately needs an update. And even though you have other teams using Baka's mod and mod tools so you can see all the boost meters of all the teams, I still can't tell if a person has a flip reset. I have to guess and assume they have it, which if you're a caster and you have to speculate on something, that in itself is a huge problem for your esport and should be fixed immediately. Again, these are probably things I could bring up in a separate video. If you guys would like me to talk about things that I think the Spectator client could definitely use, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe I will do a separate video for that. So not only does the Spectator client not allow the coaches to watch a live feed in game, they have to do this in one of 3 ways, essentially. They can either A, have their player live stream their perspective, and then they can watch that, which puts additional strain on the player's computer, which they don't want to do. They can watch a live feed that is in Discord, but if they are in that Discord, that means they cannot communicate with their team, because if their team is using Discord, that's a separate voice channel that they're in. They have to watch the live feed in that voice channel, which is not on delay, but then their team is in a separate voice channel, So how are they supposed to communicate and provide calls and do their job as a coach? The only possible solution that seems to work is the coach is both in Discord in that live feed, but then also in TeamSpeak, another voice over IP program that allows them to communicate with their team, but then they have a separate program that's used just for the live feed. Either way, it's overcomplicated and is not the appropriate solution. There should be a way to spectate the matches with a coach perspective. And the solution I offered is if they do update the Spectator Client, they need to find a way to have a panel of content creators, casters, observers come together, coaches, managers, whatever, and talk about things. The big thing I think is they need coach slots on the teams so that when the coach spectates, they can only see the boost from their players and not both teams if they do update it. Or you can just say, hey, let's update the meta, and coaches can see both sides, which is going to completely change the way the game is played. Things like that need to be discussed. So not only do you have the difficulty with a delay and the perspective of the way that coaches have to do this. So for this circumstance, Chrome, the coach of Space Station Gaming, has to tab into Discord. And if he ats and tries to tag one of the admins, it's a bannable offense on the Discord, which already sounds like a complication. But then he has to type and try to get their reaction or try to get them to pause it in time, which the overtime is only 5 seconds. So how much leeway is actually being given? Plus, you then take 20 minutes to make the decision, and in this case, it's the wrong call. Again, there's a lot of things that are done poorly here. So you've got the Sypical issue where he ends up disconnecting. It's a wrong admin call. You've got Retals who's frustrated, who ends up leaving the game early. Spectator issues, hard to call a pause, all the difficulties that are there. But wait, there's more. We then finally get into the final progress of the game, and we get to the very last game. And like I mentioned, Retals leaves. He leaves early, and there's a fine and everything else that comes with it. But of course, Retals, being frustrated and emotional, decides to say this on another stream.
You good? You good and everything?
Yeah, I'm calling Chase an idiot for finding me.
Yeah, I'm trying to like defend you on some bro. People.
Nah. Alright, nah. Here we go. Here's the story. The happens. We have comms. We have Sip shadow play. We have our comms saying Sip's like I can't move. The replay shows him going to 180 ping and packet lossing. Sonics then says that we didn't have proof that Sip was lagging. And then when we lose that game 4 and it goes 3-1, Sonic says, "Yo, Sip, send your files over." And now Shice is yemming me. I go into the Pro Discord, not very happy, obviously, calling them an absolute esport team. And then he says, "Who is this directed towards? Are they dumb?" Dude.
First things first, you call one of the staff from RLCS an idiot. Not a good idea, especially when you're in the wrong about leaving the game early. I understand your frustration. I totally believe that it is very, very annoying. And you also provide some perspective as to why you're frustrated, which I personally agree with. You provide evidence, you give a bunch of reasons as to why this is the way that it is, and then you also get asked for logs mid-series while stuff is going on when you're in the middle of a match trying to play, which again, mentally completely screws things over. This is not the way things should be handled. So Retals is frustrated, he's annoyed, and he starts venting, and I don't blame him. The difficulty though is in a world where everything is online and people can see everything and there's cancel culture and everything else going on, this is where you can get yourself in trouble. And it's frustrating because obviously you want to vent and you know you're in the right in the situation, but even with that, the ruling has gone the other way. And it sucks. It really sucks for Retals. I don't blame him, but attacking the people is obviously not the way to go about it. And this is going to be a great learning lesson for not only Retals, but also Psyonix, because they handled this extremely poorly in the beginning. So it's assumed that Retals is getting a fine for leaving early. And obviously now talking and bad-mouthing Psyonix staff is also not a good way to go and is again against the rules for obvious reasons. So everybody was wondering why this video didn't come out earlier for me. People were wondering why I didn't immediately react to this, and it's because I was waiting for hopefully something on the behalf of Psyonix and their official statements, to which we got later yesterday night. They put out 2 posts on Reddit, one for the ruling when it came to Space Station, and one specifically to Retals. Let's go through them one by one. The first one for Space Station. They said during the semifinal match between the 2 teams, the admin made a call during overtime in Game 3. Initially, Space Station players and coach reported that Sypical had experienced a server disconnect due to player connectivity issues and high ping. After further review of the player game logs, these are the things that they were asking in the middle of game 4 or post game 4. I think in the clip Retals was talking to Roldiz about, as well as the match data, server logs, and replay data, basically looking at error logs in the event viewer. They are trying to figure out what the specific issue due to inputs was, and they determined that Sypical experienced a controller disconnect followed immediately by a player-initiated minimization of the game. Alt-tab. Sypical entered a controller input, full throttle acceleration, right before the game went into OT, and before his controller disconnected, which carried over to the start of the overtime, making it appear as if he was experiencing high ping. Based on the belief that Sypical was experiencing high ping, a call was made that the play should stand as is, which is what they went with, resulting in Team Envy scoring and winning the game. Upon further investigation, the review process was not up to our standards as a league. We always aspire to work with players and coaches on reaching resolutions in a way that is fair as possible for all parties involved. An incorrect call was made. Bravo Psyonix. Immediately the next day, you get the information, you look through the logs, you do your due diligence, and you agree. We made a mistake, so let's remedy the situation. As a result, they will be awarding Space Station an additional 70 points. And this is kind of a hit and miss on both sides. Obviously, there is a chance that Space Station could have won that series. You treat them as if they go to the grand final, just like Envy. The difficulty, though, is nobody knows how that result would have played out. If Space Station does go play against NRG, would Space Station have won? You cannot play what ifs. You are not allowed to reward them for those situations. You do what you can to fix the issue, which is, hey, Envy and Space Station, we're going to treat it as if you guys tied. You're going to get the points associated to it. The best part about this entire post, though, is, quote, in addition, we will be reevaluating our player-team dispute protocol to better deal with situations like this in the future. This is what I'm talking about. Learning experience both for Retals as well as Psyonix. Both sides trying to be better, and that's all that matters. After Retals' outburst, if you want to call it that, immediately also made a statement on Reddit apologizing for the way that he acted, whether that was on his own volition or for the Space Station or whatever, does not matter. The fact that he did it and had the foresight to do it is the right deal. So good job by Retals, mature decision on that one. They then go over the specifics of the ruling and everything else in that post. So that is number 1. In the second ruling, this one is specific to Retals. It talks about after the semifinal match that Retals repeatedly violated the code of conduct. They have decided that whether there is a fine or not, we don't know specifically. It is assumed there's a fine, but the big thing that's happening is that he will be disqualified from competing in the first day of the group stage in the Spring Split Regional Major on May 22nd. So the first day of the major, he is DQ'd from. They're going to be playing with Sathu, their sub. Shoutouts to Sathwagon. Hopefully you can hit some nasty flicks. The reason for this is they deemed that there was behavior that included and is not limited to berating and harassing tournament administrators and Psyonix employees through Discord and Twitch, in reference to the clip from Rolldiz's stream.
Are they dumb?
As well as some of the messages that were sent in Discord as shown in that clip as well. It then cites the specific rules and where he has broken them and then moves from there. Stuff that they will not stand for, and it does set a precedent saying we will not stand for this, which makes sense. If you are a tournament organizer, these are things that you cannot let slide, no matter the circumstance. Even if you made a mistake, there has to be a level of respect given on both sides. So that is everything you guys need to know. My thoughts. Retals, you're frustrated. I'm with you, man. I don't blame you for leaving early. I don't blame you for being frustrated and venting your frustrations. It is very tough to be the bigger person in those situations and take a step back and vent those internally to your team. It is very, very annoying to have to keep back on that, but you leaving early against the rules, obviously you're going to be punished for that. You talking poorly about the staff and everything that you did there, they have to punish you for that as well. I understand your frustrations. I get where you're coming from. It's not a good time, but at the end of the day, Psyonix has to. If they don't, that allows anybody and everybody to do the exact same thing in future circumstances. As for the Psyonix call, I mean, anybody who's played this game long enough can understand how horrible that call was. Luckily, Psyonix is remedying the situation and being transparent with it. They agree they made a mistake. They're trying to fix the mistake to the best of their ability because it is already passed. There's nothing they can do about it now, so they reward the points. Overall, it is handled pretty well on Psyonix on the tail end, but again, I hope this never happens again. It's not a fun situation. A lot of this stuff never would have happened if the right call was made in the first place and they just replayed the overtime. I jokingly showed how easy it is on my stream to replay an overtime. It's just a matter of they have to make that call to replay the overtime in the first place. So I hope they do either A, look for a dedicated tournament admin that knows what the heck is going on in Rocket League or what the situation is, but this is something that needs to be fixed. They need to update the Spectator Client, in my opinion, and they also got to find a way and a better system to communicate with these coaches, the players, as well as just how they're going to handle these situations in the past. Because alt tabbing into a Discord and trying to type and get their attention is, to me, not the greatest idea. There needs to be, in my opinion, a dedicated person in the Discord ready to talk and answer any question at any time. So rather than typing, Chrome can alt tab. He can click on that voice channel and be like, hey, we need to call a pause. This is the situation. And then go from there. Communication is much better than having to type. That's just my opinion on it. Again, man, I feel for Retals. It's a very frustrating situation, but now his team is at a disadvantage going into those majors, and who knows what that will do for the results. Either way, that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or your own opinions, make sure you drop those in the comments down below. While you're down there, if you guys enjoy the content, thumbs up, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.